Hey YouTube, time is money, right? Well, I was wondering, how much difference in print quality will there be when you're working with different layer heights on your resin printer? So in this week's video, I'll be using my Elegoo Mars with Airy 1 black resin, they're ultra low odor, and I'll be testing layer heights from 25 microns all the way up to 250 microns or 0.25 millimeters. We're going to take a look and see the difference in print quality as well as the decreased time, and we're going to make our own decisions whether or not it's worth it to take the extra time. It also depends model per model. And in the future, I already started printing some test hooks, and I will be using those to perform a strength test just to see how much difference the layers makes. It's not ABS-like or anything like that. It's just a standard resin, so I don't expect it to be super strong to start with. Just interested in seeing what the difference is. All right, let's get started. You also may notice behind my head, up on the top shelf, I have the parts for a future project. I am actually working on rebuilding my multimedia rig. I built the current one that I have that I've showed previously on the channel about 10 years ago when I was in high school, and I figured it's about time for an upgrade. Just a quick sneak peek what I'm working on, and then we'll get back to the video. So this is what I have so far from my new computer. I have the MSI Gaming Plus Max B450. I went with MSI because that's the board that I had in my current computer, and if it lasted 10 years, I'm going to trust it to last again. Also, it's one of the most popular boards to be paired with the AMD Ryzen 5 Gen 3, and it is a 3600 series. That's not good. I also, it did come with a CPU cooler, and this one offers no real advantage over it other than the fact that it's a little nicer on the eyes. And I'm definitely throwing some RGB into this build, so I thought that would look nice over the standard Wraith cooler that came with that. And then also back up on the shelf, I have a Musatex 907. I'll throw in a picture of that out of the case, out of the box, sorry. And that's all I have so far. And in the next month or two, I'll be ordering the graphics card, RAM, and power supply, and then I'll be ready to get it built. And I'll have a video up for that as well. Hey, welcome back. So like I mentioned before, we have here, and I'll throw an SDL in the link below, but here we have from 25 microns or 0.025 millimeters in incremental size, I have it marked on the bottom, all the way up to 250 micron or 0.25 millimeters. Obviously you can see the distance, there is a slight difference. You can see the increased layer heights on the base, particularly from the two extremes. But other than that, we'll be going model to model, side by side, just to look at the differences close up. And I think you'll actually be surprised at how little you compromise for the time. But of course, if you're doing minis or you're doing high detail parts that you're going to sell, you're going to want to invest the time and have the higher resolution. But especially for something that you want to have good quality and you want to have maybe a prototyping stage, something like this, there's nothing wrong with that. I did find, like this with the large base, it stuck great, no problems, but I had some issues with the test hooks, particularly this was happening. So it would print most of the way up and then it would end up detaching or sticking to the FEP sheet, and you know, obviously it's a very good print up until then. That's just something to keep in mind. Something with a smaller area like this on the build plate is going to have, you're either going to have to add supports or you're going to have to consider sticking to the lower resolutions. I am still going to play with the exposure times and lift forces and all that stuff. But for right now, I stuck with mostly the stock values. I did increase exposure time a little bit on these last two, just to make sure that there was enough time between each layer for the resin to cure. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and take a look at each model side by side. Alright, so first up we have the 25 micron on the left and the 50 micron on the right. So we're going to go ahead, as I mentioned, the base, you can tell on the 25 micron is very smooth. You have to look very closely to see the lines. Don't mind in the middle there, I just missed a little bit of resin when I was cleaning it. Versus the 50 micron, they are still very fine, but much more visible. If the light catches them, you can see them very clearly. Versus these ones are still look much smoother. Now, as we work our way up the model, the ball on each model is still very smooth. I don't see any degradation there from the 25 focus, from the 25 to the 50 micron, all the way up. I think the only visible difference here to my eye is just that base plate right there. For me, that's an acceptable difference, considering that the 25 was I believe it was 16-hour print. I'll show the times up after this, but I believe it was a 16-hour print for this one, versus this one was in the neighborhood of 8 hours. So it makes sense it'll be about half the time. It's not exactly a linear difference all the way down. I believe the last one ended up being about 3.5 hours. Definitely a lot faster. Alright, now we'll go to the next set. Okay, now we're looking at the 50 again, next to the 75 micron. Again, so we already saw this base, we saw the layer lines, very fine but noticeable. And on this one, again, very smooth, very even, very acceptable, but definitely, again, more noticeable. And you'll notice that as we go on up until the last maybe 2 models, that's going to be the biggest difference you're going to see is those flatter planes that have like the slighter slopes. Those are going to be the ones that you're going to see the most difference on as far as the layer heights. Again, no noticeable difference between the balls, the spirals, the helix, all the way up to the tips. They are essentially identical aside from the bases. Alright, let's go on to the next ones. Now on the left is the 75 micron, on the right is 100 or 0.1 millimeters. Again, pretty much the same story here. I believe this one ended up taking about 4.5, maybe 5 hours. But between these two especially, like again there's a difference, but it's very, very minor. It's still very smooth lines here on the shallow or the steeper slope. Then once you get to this shallow, that's when you see the difference. Again, very smooth on the ball here, on the helix. Same goes for here. Again, really the only noticeable difference on these, and I'll take some close-up photos, but the only real noticeable difference on these is the bases. So again, to me, at least at this level, that seems like a reasonable trade-off in time versus quality. Alright, now we're looking at 100 microns on the left, 150 on the right, and here the story is pretty much the same. You will notice, of course, the layer lines on the base are more obvious, and then as we start to get up to the top ball, right there, you can see the layer lines, very fine, but if you look at the one on the left, they're almost unnoticeable. So at this point, you're starting to see it elsewhere in the model besides just the base. Again, still a very reasonable model. Overall, very happy with it, and if I was doing prototypes, I would be more than willing to sacrifice a little bit of quality for time. So yeah, I'm still pretty happy with this. We'll go ahead and look at the next set. Alright, on the left again, we have 150 micron, and on the right, 200 or 0.2 millimeters. Again, same differences, a lot less noticeable, I think, between the left and the right as far as the bases. And on the layer lines, you can see it just a tiny bit more on the ball on here, on the right, on the 200, but again, they're very, very similar models. The only difference that I've noticed, and this is when it might start to matter, aside from when you're doing like paid models or ultra high detail, is this one right here. So you can see, like on the first model, there's those little supports underneath that platform that are just part of the model, and this is the first one that had any issues with those. So you can see that one on the right, there's a disconnect there. So that's something you have to consider. I had trouble at 0.2 being able to complete those supports the middle ones, and the one on the left did adhere, but the one on the right disconnected. So that's just something to keep in mind. Depending on the model, that could cause a failure, and then you'd have to clean out your FEP, drain and filter your resin. So it's just up to you whether or not that's worth the risk, or make sure that your model doesn't have structures like that that are unsupported. Alright, let's go on to the next one. Alright, now we have the 0.2 or 200 micron versus the 0.25 250 micron. Don't worry about the missing piece on the base on the 0.25. I was just a little rough with the scraper pulling it off of the build plate, so that's my fault. Nothing to do with the model or the print settings or the printer. That was just my error. So ignoring that, again, you can see there's definitely an increase in the step height on the base. The layer lines on the balls are definitely the most noticeable, particularly towards the roundest, the top part of the spheres. The helix is still look great. I'll try to get a more zoomed in photo. You can see the layer lines starting for sure on this model on the helix, but still looks very nice. And then again, as I mentioned on the 200 micron, the structure underneath this little deck, same thing, and if you look at it straight on, you can see it actually peeled up a little more on the right corner. Still the middle and the left adhered, but the one on the right, there is a separation there. So that's again just something you have to keep in mind. But like I said, this model, and I'll show again momentarily, but this model took 3.5 hours approximately versus 16. Now looking at these two side by side, I think it's very obvious that the extra time was not wasted. And if you, again, were trying to sell these models or just needed something that looked very nice and you didn't want to do any cleanup work or something that really mattered, maybe a gift, Father's Day present, something like that, it might be worth it for you to spend the extra time. But especially if you're prototyping or it's something that's gonna actually see use versus something that's decorative, I would say I would still be more than happy with the amount of layer lines and the amount of time saved, considering the quality you would get over, say, maybe on an FDM printer. You're not really likely to see this level of quality at 0.25 or 0.2, even 0.1 on an FDM style printer. So I would say that it's definitely something for you to decide on your own, but I would be happy with either one of these models depending on the circumstances that I was using them in. Alright guys, so just to wrap up, I just wanted to show, I had a curiosity, I wanted to show the difference in the time versus quality on the layer heights with the Elegoo Mars. And again, like I mentioned, I used the Airy One resin. I imagine you'd see very similar results with any resin. This is just the one I had on hand in black, and I thought the black would show the layer lines the best, so this is what I used. And it's, again, your decision whether or not it's worth it, but I, depending on the circumstance, think that either one, the 25 micron all the way up to the 250 micron, are perfectly acceptable models. You just have to keep in mind that at the higher layer heights, you may have issues with the little bridges being unsupported properly, which could potentially, with a different model, cause a failure, which would cause more cleanup work. If that's something you're willing to risk, or if you have a model that you know doesn't have that sort of very lightly supported area, then it's probably something you could still go forward with. Overall, very happy with this over, say, an FDM print. It would probably take right around the same time, maybe a little bit less time on an FDM printer, but you're not going to get the same quality even at 0.1 millimeters that you would at the 0.25 with the resin printer. So I think it definitely has a place for fast prototyping, but still wanting to hold that high detail. So yeah, I hope you all enjoyed this. Let me know, like, comment, share, and just let me know what you'd like to see in the future. And there'll be plenty more to come. Alright, y'all have a great day. Thanks.